What? I'm a huge nerd. Hello and welcome back to another midnight showing. As always, I'm Kelly, and I just got out of Star Wars The Force Awakens a few days ago. Yeah, it's been taking me a little time to actually find time to record this, what with working in a retail environment during the holiday season, so I apologize for the tardiness. But with that said, hopefully what I'm going to say is still basically relevant and you haven't heard it before. And as always, there will be a non-spoiler version and a spoiler version, which I will do back to back. So if you want to see the spoilers, just keep watching, or you can skip to whatever time frame pops up down here or up here, wherever I decide to put it. But for those who don't want spoilers, let's talk about this movie for a second. It was awesome! Although, I don't know if I'm the type of guy who really thinks it's as groundbreaking and awesome and it's going to be in my top 10. It's good, don't get me wrong. It is very good. But when you get right down to it, it was rather predictable for even a Star Wars movie. And there was enough unexplained inside of it that they're obviously saving for sequels that does kind of bug me. All in all, the action was amazing. The acting from everybody was on a higher level than I've seen in a Star Wars film before. Shout out goes to the guy who played Finn and the girl who played Rey, because they were just nobody's. I don't think I've ever seen them in anything before, and they really did sell this movie to me. And of course, it was fun to see all of the old faces back again. Han Solo, Leia, Luke. Non-spoiler version, he is in this movie, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. And just overall, it actually feels a lot grander. There's a lot of practical effects mixed with CGI, which I really do like. Especially the droid, BB-8. BB-8 is the coolest goddamn thing I think I've ever seen out of one of these movies. And I do mean that, because this thing is real. It actually moves. It has things that actually do come out. It actually is rolling there and beeping along with them, not just some guy in a tin bucket going, "Reh, reh, reh, reh." That was not a smack against R2-D2. I like him too, but BB-8 blows him out of the water. And the special effects, the actual CGI stuff, looked really goddamn impressive. The only scene where it didn't was when Kylo Ren and the other asshole running the First Order are talking to the true asshole running the First Order. And only in those scenes did the CGI get a little kind of cartoonish. But then again, it was supposed to look like that because they're talking to a giant hologram. Yeah, it's a giant hologram, and that might be giving a little too much spoilers for the actual plot. Non-spoiler plot is basically the whole movie. They're trying to fight the First Order and get BB-8 to the Rebel Resistance. That's about it. If you can't figure out the basis of the story from just that, yeah, you've never seen a Star Wars movie before. As I said, it was a little bit of a too much retread for me, but there's enough new inside of it that I can say it was amazing. So, this is about the point where I'm going to go into spoilers, so if you don't want spoilers, thank you. Be sure to subscribe, share this video with your friends, and be sure to come back in a few weeks to get the top 10 list I'm working on. Top 10 best movies, top 10 worst movies, top 10 most disappointing movies, and top 10 most surprising movies of 2015. All of that is coming. Thank you, and if you guys want to stay for spoilers, here we go. So yeah, this whole movie is basically a new hope for a new generation. It is right down to it. There is a droid with information that needs to get to the rebels in order to stop the First Empire, and we have to blow up a giant space station called Starkiller Base. Yes, I know I said First Empire. Screw it. Where the movie really excels are in the moments when it does stuff differently, and that's probably the best part about the movie. Like when the two leads are meeting BB-8 and running from the First Order, and they end up commandeering the Millennium Falcon, which they called junk, by the way, which was pretty funny. Speaking of funny, this whole movie is filled with jokes. All of them land bullseyes and had most of the entire audience, both 2 times I went and saw it, laughing on the floor. It was awesome. But yeah, they ended up getting away on the Millennium Falcon only to be commandeered by Han Solo and Chewie, who were just looking for their stolen ship. Yeah, the ship was stolen by 3 guys, and the new guys stole it from the last guy who stole it, and now Han Solo is stealing it back. And he decides to help them get this droid, which the information it's holding is the location of Luke Skywalker, who has disappeared in the 30 years after everything that happened in Return of the Jedi. And of course, there's a giant space station, which they actually build out of a planet this time rather than just a giant one the size of a moon. I do like the ingenuity here, and I'm going to say that you guys did a remarkable job in 30 years to build this thing, but it's just a giant Death Star. Even the characters inside the series admit that. Han Solo is just like, oh, there's always a place where we can shoot and blow it up, isn't there? You are not Deadpool. Leave the fourth wall jokes to the other guys. And yeah, for me, it's been 40 years since Star Wars came out. Can we not retread the same shit anymore? Didn't we do enough of that inside of the prequel movies? Didn't we do enough of that in Return of the Jedi? Come on, let's do something different. Let's have more stakes. Admittedly, the Starkiller base is a bigger threat than the Death Star. It absorbs the power of an entire sun and launches it and literally destroys an entire planetary system in one shot. It is definitely a bigger threat, but it's just the Death Star on a bigger scale. And it just didn't do it for me. I wanted more from a Star Wars movie. Is that too much to ask after 40 years? 40 years. And it may seem like I'm bitching a lot about this little nitpicky thing, but I don't know. It's probably the one reason why it's not going on my best movie of the year list. I mean, if I had a top 15 that I was working on, this would probably be inside of that. But as far as the top 10, we'll see what happens when the actual list is made and filmed, but more than likely, no, it's not going on the list. Now let's talk about a lot of the characters. Finn is a former stormtrooper turned resistance fighter who was just trying to run away from the First Order because of all the shit he's seen. At least that's the way it's described. In all actuality, on his first battle, he decides to run away from them, which admittedly is not a bad thing, but at the same time, I can't say that. I wish we'd seen a couple more battles with him before they actually said he was running away. That way we actually feel it. But his actor blew my fucking mind with how likable he was. I mean, he just clicked with me. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's that I've always had a niche for superhero things, and I always prefer to see the guy choose to do the right thing, even if it's trying to run away first. As my second favorite character of all time said, I'm not running away. It's called a strategic withdrawal. 10 points to the internet if they can guess who actually said that. I would be very impressed. And yeah, he actually does choose the right thing. He's trying to actually be this, and you can actually see him overdoing it, like when he's talking to Phasma near the end of the movie, and just, yeah, I'm in charge, I'm on top, I'm doing it. Alright, kid, calm down. Okay, Solo. And it just worked. I really did feel for the guy, even though I just wish that the backstory had been a little bit more explained. I imagine they're going to do it in the sequels. I kind of wish there was a little bit more. That's kind of my big complaint from the movie, is that they just wanted a little bit more. Now let's talk about the best character in this film, Poe Dameron, played by an actor I've seen in plenty of things, but I can't think of his goddamn name. Finn really did click with me, but Poe was badass and likable. He was Han 2.0 for the new generation, which makes sense when we talk about the biggest spoiler in a few minutes. Poe is the best fighter pilot in the entire Resistance, and he's the one who's actually traveling around with BB-8 at the very beginning of the film, when he finds the one clue that may lead them to Skywalker before the First Order attacks, which he leaves the clue with the droid and tells him to haul ass. Now, we don't really know too much about this guy at first, and then he comes face to face with the bad guy of the movie, Kylo Ren. And probably one of the best scenes. Just want to talk about Kylo Ren here for a second because this needs mentioning. The Force, we've seen it do pretty generic things. This is the first time that we've seen the Force really do stuff that we haven't seen it before. When Poe shoots at Kylo, and Kylo, with a Force wave thing, not only freezes Poe in place, but literally freezes the laser blast in place. You can like see it trying to move and get away, but it's literally like frozen there. That shit was awesome. And that's not the only time that we see an expansion of the Force powers that we've known and loved. I mean, this is next level shit. And Kylo, we're going to talk about you in a minute. But back to Poe Dameron. After he gets captured and he's brought face to face with Kylo, and he's just staring at them, having a staring contest. So, do you talk first? Do I talk first? You do this? You know, it's kind of hard to actually talk to you when you're wearing the mask thing. As they proceed to beat him up. I mean, this is a guy who literally is facing down evil, who throws a fucking laser blast in mid-air. What does he do? He starts cracking jokes. Awesome. That's all I have to say. And he keeps this mentality throughout the rest of the entire film. For the parts that he's in it. Yeah, if there was one character I think was horribly underutilized, it was Poe Dameron. He is just so goddamn likable. And shortly after getting tortured for information, Viva Force mind read extraction that we've never seen before, which happens. Finn decides to help him escape because he needs a pilot. And instantly, as they're escaping, these two hit it off. Their banter inside of the TIE fighters they're flying away is awesome. But ultimately, they end up getting shot down and they crash on Jakku, which is just Tatooine 2.0. Yeah, all of the worlds on this planet are different than the worlds they've been to in the previous Star Wars movies, but they're all essentially the same. We got Desert Jakku, we've got the Rebel base, which is a giant green planet. We have a frozen planet, which is basically Starkiller base, so Hoth. Again, it just feels like retread. But right after they crash, Poe isn't seen again for almost an hour of the film, and he just shows up in a fighter pilot. How the hell did he get off Jakku? How the hell did he survive the crash? Hell, how did Finn survive the crash? But yeah, I just wish that he had been more. Because when he shows up at the end, and while he's doing the stuff in the dogfight, he's the only thing in the dogfight I really care about. He's the one who ends up ultimately destroying Starkiller Base when he literally flies his freaking X-Wing into a hole made by Han Solo, Chewie, Finn, and Rey, and just goes in there and starts blasting the shit out of this one regulator thing. And then he ends up flying right out of that hole right as it explodes behind him. Bad ass. Where was this guy the rest of the film? Probably removed because he would have stolen the show. And yeah, he is definitely the most likable thing in this movie. Now let's go on to someone like Kylo Ren. Now, Kylo for me was the best/worst Star Wars villain we've ever seen. Don't get me wrong. I love Vader. I fucking love Vader. But the prequels kind of ruined a lot of his mystique, and you can't really get over some of that. I'm not meaning the prequel bash here. I'm just saying that knowing him as a whiny teenager kind of takes away the evil menace that we find out later on. Although Belated Media did finish up their series on What If Star Wars Episode 3 were good, which was actually very good. Go check it out. But yeah, let's go on to Kylo. Kylo comes off as a really, really, really whiny teenager at one point in this movie. When he starts out, he is badass. He's menacing. He's got the deep, gravelly, robotic voice, obviously given to him by the mask. He comes in, he stopped a fucking laser blast literally in midair. He's able to literally extract the information from your mind. He's intimidating. He really is. And when they remove his mask, he's not some scarred monster. He's just a guy, which is good. I didn't want him to be like this chopped up faced thing. I didn't want him to have burn marks. I didn't want him to be a retread of Vader. I wanted him to be his own unique thing. And he was, until you start to learn his backstory, and he has his more freak-out moments, when he comes off like Vincent D'Onofrio as the Kingpin. Oh, Internet! I made a Daredevil reference. Now I'm gonna piss you off, because Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin can go to fucking hell! Yeah, unlike everyone else, I actually hate that type of performance. It comes off as a whiny little teenager, which is the problem that ruined Darth Vader for us, isn't it? I'm never gonna be as strong as Vader. Please, Vader Mask, make me as strong as you used to be. I need to know the power of the dark side of the Force. He's a traitor, a murderer, a thief! And I hate this shit. I really do. Why can't our bad guys be unsympathetic? Why can't we have a villain that we want to just see die? Admittedly, they make up for this by a major spoiler, and if you don't want this spoiler, I suggest skipping this part, because this spoiler fixes 99% of the problems I have with this character, assuming that the writers can take it into the next movie. But, oh boy. Yeah, I'll try to put a timetable down here for you to skip if you don't want to make this spoiler. I'm serious, this is a big spoiler. No, seriously, you don't want to be spoiled? This is going to be bad. Like, childhood bad. Please? Okay, here we go. Kylo Ren kills Han Solo. Right through the chest. Stab through the heart, and you're to blame. You give love a bad name. Yeah, so it turns out that Kylo Ren is in fact the son of Han Solo and Leia. Yep. And he's the one who killed the entire new generation of Jedi that Luke had been training. Oh boy, adding on the pity for Lee. He had been seduced by Snoke, the leader of the First Order, who is the giant CGI monster I mentioned earlier. And he proceeded to live up to the awesome power and might of Lord Vader. But there was one thing holding him back. He did have some sliver of goodness, and we see him praying to the mask in the movie about how he needs to be reminded of the power of the dark side, to give in to his hate and his rage, and to destroy that little bit of light that's left in him. In a scene that is very, very reminiscent of Empire Strikes Back, Kylo Ren, or Ben Solo, walks out onto this little metal grating over a giant hole that leads to the center of the earth. And Han Solo calls out to him. And they have a nice little conversation about Han Solo trying to save him, trying to bring him back to the good side, trying to desperately, and I mean desperately, reach to his son. And Kylo says, "You can help me, and tries to give him his lightsaber. But he can't let go of it. And then he turns it on and right into Harrison Ford. Now, what makes this scene isn't the fact that he stabbed him, because it's telegraphed. It is so telegraphed. If you have ever seen Star Wars, you just know exactly where this is going. Like, oh my god, no. 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 They aren't going to do it. They are seriously not going to do this. Oh my god, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. But what makes the scene is Chewbacca, Finn, and Rey's screams. Perfectly reflecting the audience's reaction here. And yeah, we finally get our reason why this is an unredeemable bastard. He just did the last thing to kill off that shred of light inside of him. We want to see him dead now, and that's the kind of villain I want inside of this movie. I don't want to feel sympathy for this guy. I want to see him die. I want to see our heroes make the choice not to kill him, but then he comes at them again, giving him no choice but to kill him. I don't want a sympathetic villain. We've been showered with so many sympathetic villains. Basically fucking flooding media these days. I wanted this, and now he gave us a reason why we want to see him dead. And I can live with that. I can get over the parts of Kylo Ren, Ben Solo that I didn't like before because they made him irredeemable now. And I just hope they stick to their guns and not try to have him become good again because, God, that cliché's been done to death. Can we just move on, please? Again, retread if they do it again. And I don't want that. I want something new from the Star Wars movies. Admittedly, I am a big nerd. I have tons of Star Wars memorabilia and stuff, but I am actually more of a Star Trek guy. Fun fact. So, for me to start asking these questions rather than the fan base, I don't know if that really carries weight. But, someone's got to say it. Now let's move on to the main character of this series, basically, which is going to be Rey. She is the junkyard girl who is on Jakku, who ends up having the Force. Yeah, I have a theory that she's actually Luke's daughter, and that Kylo Ren and her are cousins. Just saying, but that's just a fan theory. But yeah, she's the one who actually has the Force. She's the one who actually takes up the lightsaber. Not at first, though. At first, Finn is given the lightsaber because she won't take it, even though it's calling to her. He's trying to give it to her before she's inevitably captured. But those are the scenes where he's actually fighting with it. And he does hold his own, which makes me think he's probably going to get trained as a Jedi at some point, too. He's not going to be as strong as Little Miss Perfect with blood lineage, but he's probably going to get trained. But Rey is the wide-eyed, everything is new that we needed for this series. We haven't seen a character like her. Not only do we get to see a badass female lead inside of a movie. Yes, someone's going to point out the Hunger Games, but frankly, after Mockingjay Part 2, are we really going to say that she's all that badass when she just gets dragged around by a leash for 90% of it? Just saying. But she's also wide-eyed. She's never experienced any of this before. When she gets onto the Falcon and they're actually doing stuff, you can just see the joy in her face. Like, did you shoot that? Did you do the flying thing? Oh my gosh, oh, it was so amazing. Oh, this is awesome. I can't believe we do it. I can't believe we actually left Jakku. This is awesome. When she's actually interacting with Harrison Ford, it's actually very engaging. You can see a connection building there, and it's very, very real. She respects Harrison Ford, not just for his reputation, but or the Millennium Falcon, but because he's likable, and she's really digging it. This isn't any kind of love thing. It's more of like a repressed daddy issue, being that she never had parents. She was an orphan on Jakku, which, if my theory stands, means that Luke dropped her off there and said, bye, I'm not going to be a responsible parent. I'll be waiting on an island for you in 30 years. Bye. And yeah, that was Luke's entire role in this movie, as a 30-second cameo at the very end of the film. I could just hear all of the fanboys going, what? That's it? It made me laugh. But yeah, her excitement, her wide-eyed, after she gets captured by Kylo Ren and she discovers she has Force powers, her actually experimenting with them is really, really goddamn enjoyable. There's a really funny scene where she starts trying to do that Jedi mind trick on her guard to get him to open up the locks and let her out. She tries it and she's like, you will undo these locks and leave the door open. He ends up walking up and he's like, I'll tighten these locks, you scavenger scum. And finally, after a few more tries, it actually does work. And you just see him go, I will undo these locks and leave with the door open. And you will leave your gun, and I will leave my gun. It legitimately is hilarious. And you get to see her experiment and come to full realization that, yeah, this is her next step. This is what she has to do. Which makes the lightsaber fight between her and Kylo at the very end of this movie, after she finally gets the lightsaber back from Finn, all the more real. I'm not going to say that this is the best choreographed thing I've ever seen in the world, because it's not. That wasn't the point. We didn't like the lightsaber duels inside of Revenge of the Sith because of the choreography. Look, The fight between Darth Maul, Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan was cool inside the first movie because there was real stakes there. They were doing a bunch of flips and kicks and doing all these different moves, but we felt something because the characters, you could see the reactions on their face as they were having a hard time with this. They all felt pressured. By Revenge of the Sith, we didn't really feel that because there was no pressure at all between them, except for that one moment when Anakin and Obi-Wan try to force push each other. That's the only time they feel like they're actually struggling. This feels like more of a back to basics. It's a lot of tapping, not a lot of big, heavy movement. The scenery is really dark just so that their lightsabers pop out a little bit more. And thank God, J.J. Abrams actually had the wise foresight to have real sparks fly off every time they touch their lightsabers together, or when they touch something else on the side, like a rock formation, actual sparks going off. Yes, it's a trick from Power Rangers, but it looks amazing and actually does give weight to their actions. CGI sparks look like shit. They really do. So having real ones blow off in their faces, you can see the reactions on everyone's faces, and it does legitimately look like they're being pressured. It looks like they're having a hard time with this. They're actually reacting to when something explodes in their face. I liked this lightsaber fight because it felt so back to basics. We didn't need the big movements. I'm hoping that we get some more inside of the next film, and even inside of the film after that. But for just basically a reboot, which is essentially what this movie is, it really does help. In fact, this movie doesn't even start out with Kylo Ren versus Rey. It starts out with Kylo Ren versus Finn. And this is what leads me to believe that Finn is actually going to be trained as a Jedi. Because he fights Kylo and he actually holds his own. Admittedly, Kylo is hurt and he's definitely out of practice, being there hasn't been another Jedi who can fight him in a long time. But when he's actually holding his sword and he's going at it, he actually does get a few blows, like a couple of little glancing shots inside of the guy's shoulder. Admittedly, he ends up losing and gets slashed across the back pretty quickly. But at the same time, I can honestly say he did hold his own against a fucking Sith Lord and hit him. He hit him. Although, wonderful side note, there's a moment when they're like clash blades in this thing, and Kylo takes one of those little side lightsaber things and starts digging it into Finn's shoulder. Which, alright, that's cool, but you're still going to slice off your hand the second your hand goes freak, because those little pegs are not long enough. They need to be a little bit longer. Just saying. But after Finn goes down, the lightsaber goes flying, and Kylo tries to force the lightsaber back to him, only to have it literally come fly in front of his face and have Rey standing over there and catch it. That was badass and awesome, and I loved it. But yeah, ultimately, Rey is everything that this series needed from a main protagonist. Wide-eyed, fun, not whiny, and has some legitimate issues she needs to work out. And honestly, I can't think of anything else that's going to talk about. There are problems with this film. Some of the space battle doesn't look as good as it probably could, but I can get over that because the rest of it's engaging. Yes, it's a retread and basically a reboot of A New Hope, but they did do enough new and hit me right in the childhood with that spoiler, and it really does show. And yeah, I've got really nothing else to say, so that's it for me. Did you enjoy the video? Have you seen Star Wars The Force Awakens? What did you think about it? Tell me what you thought in the comments below, and maybe we'll get into some healthy discussion. And as always, if you liked what you see, be sure to hit the subscribe button and check out my channel along with some of my other playlists. I will have those linked up here. If you want to see some of my more recent videos, including an audience reaction that I did, which has gotten a hell of a lot of views for comparatively on my channel, I will have those linked right down here and probably the audience reaction over here. And just as a reminder, as I said, I am working on top 10 lists. Just as the reminder, the top 10 best list, the top 10 worst list, top 10 most disappointing list, and top 10 most surprising list of 2015. I hope to have those out by the first week of January, I originally was going to have a cutoff date of Christmas for all of the movies this year, but The Hateful Eight is coming out technically in this year, and I'm pretty sure that's going to make my top 10. But yeah, I should probably go see that, as well as a few others, especially ones that are going to make my worst list. Lighters! What? So yeah, I'm actually going to do it. It might end up pushing those lists back an entire week in January, which I don't want to do, but I can't make any promises. I'm just letting you guys know ahead of time. And that's it for me, so I guess I'll see you all next time.